Joining me now in a Fox Business exclusive is the former Georgia senator and now the brand new U.S. ambassador to China, just sworn in this week, David Perdue. Congratulations to you, Ambassador.
Maria, hi. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. What are you expecting from these talks this weekend?
Well, first, President Trump is doing exactly what he told American voters he would do last year during the campaign. He's going to stand up for American workers. He's sending our A-team, Ambassador Greer and Secretary Bessent, to Switzerland to engage. But I want to remind everyone, Maria, that this is a beginning. It may not be the end, and we hope for good things coming out of this weekend. But I met with and talked with Ambassador Greer and Scott Bessent this week, and I can tell you that, these guys are going to execute the president's plan to stand up for American workers.
And that plan, the president has said, involves a lot more than just trade, doesn't it? There are non-tariff barriers that have been in place and sort of an undermining by Communist China on America for years.
Well, they have, Maria. And this comes out of World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement. And when America, as the president said this week, when he did a proclamation on VE Day, which was yesterday, he said, look, we helped rebuild the world through the Marshall Plan. We set up trade agreements that benefited those people as they developed their countries. But we're in a new day now. We need to repair that, create a level playing field. We also need to rebuild our strategic industries that have been hollowed out by this unfair, and you said it earlier today, it's free trade, but it's not fair trade. And so there are other things like currency manipulation, regulation, overbite, and so forth that this president wants to deal with, not just tariffs.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got Xi Jinping in Moscow right now as the guest of honor for Vladimir Putin at his celebrations commemorating victories of World War II, serving as a strong showing of unity between these two nations and against the West. What is your reaction here?
Well, I'm going to Beijing to represent this president, and I'm focused on our relationship with them. There are other people that will deal with the Russia issue, but I can tell you this, the president's going to make sure, with whether it's Xi Jinping or anyone else over there, what's important to us and what we expect in this relationship with China as we go forward. They have World Trade Organization membership. They get most favored nation treatment, and they also are still considered a developing country. These are things that are going to be evaluated by this president as we go forward.
Well, it's a great point that you make because it's the second largest economy. Should we really be thinking of China as a developing nation anymore? And what about all these breaks that they're getting in the United States? After all of those Chinese companies that trade on U.S. exchanges that don't even follow the same standard accounting rules that every other publicly traded company follows.
Well, that's right. They want foreign direct investment, but transparency is not necessarily there. The currency manipulation we talked about has occurred occasionally. And so what we want is equal access. That's what this is about, reciprocity. If they can do it here, we want to be able to do it there. We want the rules to be very similar. It's not just China, Maria. You call on it all the time that it's other countries around the world. So what President Trump is doing right now is a reflection of what he did in the first administration. He didn't like TPP because he didn't think it was fair for our workers. So he developed bilateral agreements with many of our allies, and that's what he's doing now. We saw this agreement you just mentioned with Great Britain. It's a good deal for both. Look, we have our best deal maker on the front line, and that's President Trump. So I'm very optimistic that we're going to see some progress, not just in China, but around the world.
So, Ambassador, tell us now then, what are your top priorities when you get to China? What's first on your list?
Well, first, I want to make sure that our people are safe and secure. That's the very top priority of any ambassador. Secondly, is I want to represent this president's plan to the people of China in addition to the government. The third thing is I think we have to inform our people here in the United States about how we got here and what President Trump's plan is really about to do this. It sounds good to talk about tariffs, but that's just one issue. There are so many other issues that we're engaging on to do that. So my priority is to represent President Trump's plan and to be his man in China.
And in terms of the trade, they didn't follow up on the promise that they made during the first Trump administration. They did a trade deal with the United States, but then when Joe Biden took over, they stopped buying the agriculture that they promised they would.
Well, and we basically backed off and didn't try to enforce it. It's like the WTO violations. So, what this president will do is make a deal, but then we are also going to be about trying to make sure that people live up to their agreements. And with China, I think that's a big part of it. Look, we don't want to hold China down. We've done everything we could over the last 4 decades to help China grow. The only thing the president's trying to do right now is to create a level playing field so our workers get a fair deal when it comes to competing. That's what he's all about.
Ambassador, what's with all of this surveillance? I mean, you know, sending a spy balloon into the country and hover around our military installations, having Chinese companies buy land right next to our military installations. What are they up to? Well,
they want to know everything we're doing. I mean, there's no secret. You know, they're in our power grid, they're in our ports, they're in our personal lives. We've seen the hack of the personnel office here in the federal government. These are things that our FBI and others have called out over various presidencies over the last 20 years. So these are things, very serious conversations that we're going to have about what is going on with regard to penetration and collection of information in the United States. It's hidden, some of it, and some of it's visible. So one of my responsibilities will be, I think, to help inform the American people and this administration about what China is really doing here in the States.
Well, these are all national security issues, Ambassador, but I want to get your take on the corporate sector. Companies oftentimes ignore the national security issues because they want to sell to the 1.4 billion person population there in China. What do you want to say to corporate America about these issues?
Well, President Trump is going to establish the relationship such that they're going to get the message that we're going to rebuild these strategic industries. They're going to be a part of it. So it's a question of where you're going to invest your money. A lot of people invested very heavily in China over the last few decades. I was part of that 30 years ago. But a lot of people have not made a lot of money over there with the regulations, the partners you have to have, the intellectual property that's been stolen, and so forth. So there's a refocus on American manufacturing. In fact, President Trump calls it a manufacturing renaissance in this country, and I'm very hopeful to see that happen. I'm optimistic that it will. This is a major part of his plan for the next 3 years.
Ambassador, we know you've got an incredibly important portfolio. We'll be watching your work. Thanks so much.